Okay, the Mavic 2 Zoom. So let's quick context. In as little time as possible, I'm going to try and convey as much valuable information as I can about this device in terms of how it can be used in the practical setting for rowing coaches. Now, light is running out. We're outside. There's cars. This is what it is. One take shot. As I draw things out, I'll try to quickly mention basically how many times I've messed that thing up and how and why and how that's contributed to my process. Otherwise, this is number 3 drone for me. I had the Mavic, the original, the one, Platinum is awesome. I learned on that. Didn't have to replace it before upgrading to the 2 Pro, which is again awesome. I consequently did drive the 1 into the water, but you know, that's another time and place. The Zoom I'm pumped about. We're going to use it this weekend at the first ever Seattle Scullers showcase. Yeah, we'll see how it goes here. So I hope you all enjoy how awesome it is to open one of these. I mean, this is the future. The fact this is down to a price point where a rowing coach can afford it is pretty outrageous. This is basically a helicopter with a smart cameraman attached to it when it boils down to it. Not too long ago that would cost you 15 grand for the day, not $1,500 for however long you can keep it out of the water. It takes a little bit of practice. I think I've done over, at this point, 100 hours in the air with the 2 drones I've had in use so far. I'm looking to do even more with this one. Well, let's be honest, we're not returning this. Yeah, it's okay. There we go. Now they got directions. Open. Okay. Alright, here we go. Alright, so what you're looking at, so this is the main unit. This is a darker, Zoom's darker than the Pro. Yeah, it's beautiful. So the big difference, it's going to be the same flying capabilities, basically. Same time in the air, same maneuvering capabilities. The difference is going to be the camera. So the Pro has a Hasselblad camera, and it's an amazing camera. The Zoom has the ability to zoom with the video and produce 4K footage and high resolution and much better up close, which is helpful with the rowing. Trying to get the close shots from above normally just takes a little bit of risk. Hopefully this will help us get us a little bit closer to the action on Sunday without interfering with a lot of the action. And this is your remote. I really highly recommend, especially waiting until the new iPad minis. Are those out yet? I've been a little bit off the planet. Something's new with the minis, at least if it's not happened already. The iPad is a big difference maker for me in terms of the ability to use the camera controls, and especially when it comes to the automatic tracking, to be more precise in drawing in the boxes, if you know what I'm talking about. But it's worth the extra investment, I think, to have the iPad mini. Otherwise, I actually have the iPhone 8. I'm recording on it, so you can't really see it, but the big one, I think. I forgot what they're called. Obviously, I'm really up to date on my consumer electronics. So basically, a couple things. Just one thing I just want to be clear about. Always, always, always take your gimbal clamp off before you start anything up. One of the easiest things to do is damage the motor and overheat it. So you just want to make sure you never turn this on with the gimbal cover. I've gotten lucky, and I've turned it on several times, and but never done nothing too bad. But I think that's a major place where you can cause some wear on your drone. A big thing, just to kind of take a look at this, and why don't we go over this while this is my first unboxing video. Can you tell? So just to take a look at this. So there's multiple things happening here. There's these sensors that you'll see around the drone. These are the obstacle avoidance sensors. The Mavic 2's an upgrade in that department. It's pretty outrageous. It can be really sensitive, actually. Sometimes I'll want to turn it off. It's dangerous to turn it off. I was doing some maneuvers on land, forgot to turn it back on, and thought the obstacle avoidance features are pretty good at avoiding the ground and the water. They're big, giant things, but when you turn them off, instead of coming up and hovering, they'll just go right in, and I've done that. That's my biggest fail, for sure, but I was able to recover the drone, and honestly, it dried over the course of several months, and it's okay sometimes to get things get busy. But yeah, I had to go dive and get it. Big thing about the rotors here is I try to keep the blades off when I'm in travel. I think, especially if you look inside here, there can be some damage and the rotor, the little plastic parts can get stuck in there, so I like to travel with those off. If you look in here, you've got the memory card holder here, or insert. It's crazy what you can do with memory now. I mean, the 250. I mean, basically, I can have as much on a micro SD as is humanly necessary. And then I don't even know what that is. I never use it. But the big thing over here, obviously, is your data, right? This is basically also, you can have, there's storage on the drone as well. There's a hard drive, so if you do run out of your SD card, it'll start running on the drone. And there's also video cache in on your device as you're running it as well. The battery, I would definitely recommend getting at least 2 additional ones, so you have 3 total. I like to roll with 4, and then I can run multiple batteries. You get, I think the 2 is up to about 27 minutes for a single battery, and that's and then it falls out of the sky at 27 minutes, right? So 25 in the air effective, maybe, if you're running it to the very end, and then of that 25, how much is effectively on camera? How effective are you at that point? I mean, in the beginning, if you're really good, you'll get 5 minutes. Like, sure, I might be getting 20 now, but I've been doing it for 2 years. It takes because you only get 1 battery each time, and you got to use it. You got to learn from that 20 minutes. So how much risk are you willing to take? I would recommend you taking all of it. You got to be willing to lose $1,500 every time you put this up in the air, basically. I just don't use the floaty things. When the tracking features that just slows the drone down in my mind, so I just don't do it. And it's worked so far. I also love, once you get to 4 batteries, and you've got a 4 smart charger, etc., you get a little charging bank, you can be slapping the batteries on as you go through them, and effectively you are now running a system where you are replacing the batteries at charging. By the time you've done the 4th battery, you're back number 1 with a fully charged battery. Iggy, you want to say hello to everybody? Why don't you go relax a little bit? Hang on over there. Go hang out. Thanks, bud. So batteries are important. Battery management is probably the number 1 thing and I'll tell you the number 1 thing is patience with this thing. Set it up correctly. Make sure you've got your compass taken care of each time. Magnetism is a weird thing I found. So, like, if you're on metal objects, these things affect things. If you're rushing to get this set up before you're going out in the water to capture footage, you're in trouble. So set it, like, if you're doing it with a client or a team or whatever the context is, this should be set up and ready before anybody shows up. So there's a lot of extra work, believe it or not, in making this a viable part of your daily practice. Those are the basics of the actual unit. Again, this is the first time I've seen this camera. This is actually pretty cool. I'm really stoked to use the zoom. The Hasselblad's an amazing piece of technology, but obviously the zoom is cool.
Did somebody say goodnight?
Oh yeah, is that a good kid?
Who are you talking to?
Just the internet.
Clouds.
Is that the clouds? Yeah.
Oh, you're filming.
Yeah.
See a cloud.
Pretty clouds?
Yeah.
I kid. 99. Can I kiss? One more kiss. I'll see you tomorrow, okay?
Is that book?
No, it's not Sparkle. What's a beer, kid? I'll see you a little bit. All right. Yeah, real professional, I know. So just now going through the elements here. You know, these are your, you know, these are the connector cords from your thing. I get a longer one of these because I have the iPad mini that I like to use. Gives me a little bit more range. These are a little cheaper. Like one of these basically. Oh, that's dope. Yeah, they have, it's all the new Charger stuff. I'm glad they're finally getting together and coming together with some good stuff. Iggy, go hang out. What we got here? And here's the basic charging unit. What I do like on this one, this go round, is they hook it up a little bit better, I think, than with the original Mavic. They give you a little bit more on the go round here. So, a couple things. Here's your rotors. Take care of these. Make sure you check these. Here's the thing: check them before each flight. Make sure there's no chips or wear or whatever. That'll affect your performance, your speed, your handling, all those things. It's also important to keep in mind, like where you buy your replacements from and what your product is. You know, there's some cheaper stuff out there, so making sure that you're, you know, paying attention to your product. I also have, in addition to the additional batteries, I have the 4 battery charging station, which I recommend as well. Again, there's a lot of moving parts to this, right? So, as I drop all those moving parts everywhere. So when you're moving around on site, trying to manage, and you know, you're managing a practice or a client or whatever you're doing, and you just don't want to be in a position where you're rushing and looking, and you're going to look stupid, especially when it goes in the water the first time, or not, maybe you're better than I am, but you just want to make sure, especially with, like, for example, which I love on here. So what they did with the remote on this go around is they made, this is great. So they put the joystick pieces right in here. Right, dope. So that when you travel, these can go right and back, and then there's much less risk of damaging the joystick rotor here. A couple things I recommend getting beyond the batteries. I think batteries are the most important thing if you're going to spend additional money. Buy a nice case, take care of it, make sure it's protected at any time. It's a good piece of equipment. Memory cards are important. Right, I always have a bunch of those because you'll forget those. I guarantee it at some point, or at least I did. And then other than that, it's like just go have fun with it. Right? It's a drone, man. It's kind of crazy the fact that we have basically pilotless aircraft intelligently tracking, moving, and not one at a constant being accelerating. Like boats do this, and if you get really good with the active track, what you'll find is you'll be able to hold the boat exactly in frame, which means, and you'll watch this because the drone's in front of you. If you've got somebody driving the launch and you're driving the drone, obviously, as you're watching the drone, you'll notice that if here's the boat and the boat's going to accelerate, decelerate, the drone's going to do this with it because it's going to keep that exact point of reference to the object if it's hooked on correctly, and as a result, so on each, if I'm watching the screen later, let's pretend this is the screen, the boat will hold exactly here, and you won't see any change in the distance from the stern and the bow, for example, to the edge of the frame. So essentially the rower will only be moving within the context of the boat back and forth. Now, if you can get the camera, which is the trickier part, to instead of lock onto with a full shell, but onto the athlete will stay centered in frame. So then the athlete's centered and the boat will be moving back and forth underneath it. And you'll see, for example, the boat's response to a lack of connection at the catch, and the boat will slip and it'll fall off. You know, it's super, and again, this one's even more crazy to me because, so you have the athlete moving like this on top of the shell, and now the drone is following that athlete, right? And so moving counter to the shell even. So yeah, the singularities happened. Their cameras are smarter than we are, and so this is, I mean, they did say it was called Skynet, right? So whatever, it's going to be by drone as far as I'm concerned. But until then, I'm going to take as much use of these things as I can. And I'll tell you, the things you see with up close and from above that you just haven't seen before, I guarantee it, because you haven't been hovering above a shell at speed. You might have seen something go under a bridge or whatever, and like for that one moment had a nice little vertical. But to see the whole system in play through a connective element, like from the surface of the blade all the way through the footplate, I can tell you when the heels are coming off. You know, it's a different game. So if you're not doing this, or trying to get somebody in your boathouse to do it, or chasing down the 9-year-old at the mall who's got his little Spark or whatever, like, you got to get on it, because I am, and other people are, and if you're not on this, get on something, because technology's here, and rowing should take advantage of it. So, you know, appreciate you taking a risk maybe in getting one of these. It is a big investment, but I haven't learned as much from anything else in my career. So it was a huge investment in myself, as well as my athletes. So recommend everybody taking the leap and getting them up there. You know, with any disruptive innovation, you're going to run into, you know, friction. My big one is I operate on a unpaved airport, technically, seaplanes coming in. So that just means I don't take a single risk. I mean, the FAA hasn't gotten too active out in the West Coast just yet, but if they did, I wouldn't want to be the first. So we don't keep drone above 30 feet. You know, the limit's 300, right? But there's no need for me to be 300 feet above the boats to get value data. Now, I might get some sweet shots later when I know there's, you know, but that's a different thing. Yeah, so if you have any questions about any of this stuff, I'm really open to information sharing. You just got to get a hold of me, which is the harder part. You know, like, I have 3 phones, and one of them doesn't work now, and I don't really do email very effectively, at least. So, like, surprisingly enough, like, the DMs are the way to do it. So hit me up if you got any questions. Otherwise, happy trails, happy hunting, and drone it when you get it. Later.